Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm Eric. I work on the go-to-market team here at Ephemera, and we're focused on growing our amazing community of agents, mini app developers, and I'll be the MC today for the call. And I'm super pumped to welcome you to today's developer community call. Just a few notes before we get started. This call is being recorded for those who can't make it live, and we'll be posting it on the XMTP community forums, and we'll drop the link a little bit later as well. We're also following the XMTP Code of Conduct in all public community spaces, including this call, so you can find that and here as well. Let me drop that. And we're really focused on creating a space where everyone feels welcome, ask questions, share ideas, keep this super open for that today. And we're using a webinar format for today's session. Keep the experience safe, secure, and we do see you in the audience, so feel free to raise your hand, unmute. We'll bring you on as a panelist to keep this session going. One more thing we like to say on the few calls, that we really do believe in open protocols, permissionlessness, private, secure communication that you can own and control, and that's our mission too, and we're super glad that you can make it today. All right, before we jump into the demos, just want to take a quick second to why this moment matters and why we decided to talk about vibe coding agents, mini apps today. We're really entering a new era for messaging, and not just chat, but at the protocol layer where agents are the new apps and where group chats can become their own microeconomy. When you combine decentralized messaging with native payment rails and portable identity, it truly opens up a completely new fundamentals of messaging and what it means to interact with friends, businesses, and even creators in a chat. So things that we're really looking forward to and just getting started with are things like launching a prediction market with your friends in a group, unlocking premium content and exclusive access right in your inbox, launching a token that powers a community with comms all in a secure group chat. So this stuff is no longer a theory, like it's right there. And this is the beginning of all this that's starting to happen. And that's what you're here to build. And we're here to build the new foundation of messaging. So whether you're actually writing code or writing just plain old natural language into a no-code platform, you're a builder now. And we're here to get you started and bring that all to life. So today's event and agenda, first, we're going to have Fabri, aka Human Agent, if you see him around Telegram and on Twitter. He's going to walk us through how to vibe code an agent using XMTP's latest tools. Then Duke from Ohara is going to show us how to build mini apps, writing code, and how does agents kind of fit into Ohara's next phase of their platform. And then after that, we got Naomi, VP of Eng here at Ephemera, sharing some updates, and then finally we'll get into some Q&A. So really excited to dive in. Let's get into it. Over to you, Fabri.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I'm going to share the screen.
Perfect.
Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to start like showing the current agent demo/docs that we have today, and they all live in this repo that is called XMTP agent examples. So it's a mono repo, and it has a lot of the XMTP best practices and a lot of simple examples, like very minimal. Each example is meant to be like to showcase only one functionality or one feature or maybe one approach or best practice. And yeah, these are very modular and very small. So the idea is that eventually you have a bunch of examples and you feed them into an AI and you can vibe your way through building like a fully functional agent. So let's go over this repo and some of the concepts to get to know XMTP better. So yeah, so some of the things we are core to the protocol is how we handle keys. For example, like each XMTP identity is associated with a wallet, right? And this wallet, it could also be associated with passkeys, but with agents, we are focusing on Ethereum wallets. So you will need a private key of the wallet. And then you will need an encryption key. The encryption key, because XMTP is end-to-end encrypted, means that messages are not stored online, let's say, and they are downloaded to your device. They are download encrypted, and on your device with your keys, the messages are decrypted. So only on your device, you're able to see the messages. So that presents or introduces a couple of nuances. But yeah, so that's the point of the encryption key, is to log your local database, so you can, do a backup or restore it later, and you always know that you are the only one who has access to that local database, not only with the wallet key but also with the encryption key. So it's a double security measure. For making it easier, we have a script that will generate the random key for you. If not, you can go, for example, to MetaMask. Sorry. Okay. Can't remember my password. Okay. So in MetaMask, you will have a seed phrase creates you, is the creator of all your wallets in your MetaMask. So when you create the MetaMask, is going to make you to say the seed phrase, and then you can start creating accounts. Each account is a wallet. Each wallet is going to have its own public key. So this is how the agent is live on the network. Is the address that people can send a message to, and then this address can be associated with a DNS domain or a base address and so on. And each wallet also has a way to show the private key. So if I enter the password, it's going to export a private key. So yeah, this one way is to create the wallet in MetaMask, for example, or any of the other wallets, and then to import it in your XMTP examples repo. And that is going to create the XMTP identity. Or another one is to start with a simple random key. So yeah, let's go over that. So I have the repo now here, the XMTP examples repo. I forked it from GitHub. So if I run gen keys, it just created two keys, random keys. I already have one, but it's creating one over my environment file. The environment file saves variables that your agent can use on the backend and are private. So they are not on the code. So this is the wallet key and the encryption key. So now, I already have this one. So I'm going to do like a yarn dev. And that's it. You just need the two keys, and then the XMTP client is started. So once you have the client started, by default, we are using the GM example. The GM example, it's a very simple example that, let's go over the code, uses the signer, so creates a signer wallet. So it's basically like clicking sign on a web app or mobile app. So that's how it's done on the backend. So you just need the key, and it's like signing. Once you sign, you then send the signer to the XMTP client creation, and you also specify the network. So we have two networks, dev and production, and we also have a local network for local development. So you would expect to develop on local network, then maybe test it on dev network. And once your app is live or your bot is live, you go to production, which is where the live production apps are currently hosting. So yeah, you will create the client, and we will log the agent details. And this is what we are seeing on the console, like a cool XMTP logo, and then the agent details that come from these parameters. So the address is the same address associated with the private key of the wallet. And this is live on the XMTP network, and you can start messaging this agent. The inbox ID is something specific to XMTP. So one inbox ID can have multiple addresses or multiple passkeys, multiple identities. So it's one too many. But once you create an address for an inbox ID, you can think of them as like, the same identity, but different identifiers. But the inbox ID is the thing that is going to, like, addresses can change, or maybe someone is talking to you through XMTP, but they don't necessarily have a wallet address, but they're still going to have an inbox ID. And in this case, we are using production network, and it's giving me a URL. So a big part also of working with agents is get to know XMTP chat. So XMTP chat is a web inbox we have, and it's a very cool web inbox. It's meant to be used by devs. So it has a lot of details and a lot of concept that the protocol introduces. So in this case, for debugging my agent and for testing it, I can log into XMTP chat. So we will need to log on production because that's the network the agent is running on. And then we can log in with my MetaMask wallet, for example, or I could log with Coinbase Smart Contract wallet, or I could log with an Ephemeral wallet. I need to cancel. I want to log with an Ephemeral wallet. So an Ephemeral is creating basically a random wallet for you to use, temporary wallet. You don't need to know. You can definitely get the address of this temporary wallet. Also, its inbox ID. And yeah, you also have installation. So because it's end-to-end encrypted, each device is also going to have its own ID. And we can create a group, or we can create a DM or direct message. So in this case, we have a deep link ready. So if I click on the URL from the terminal, it's going to redirect me through to this address, which is the same thing as copy pasting the address and sending a new direct message to this address. And yeah, so if I say hi, the agent is going to respond GM, right? So we can see in the logs on the left, we can see like, the cream was started. This means like a stream is running. The stream is listening for any incoming message, and then it's logging the message that I sent and responds GM. So this agent is going to know who is the sender, what is the message, and then is able to reply. Same applies for groups. And you will see in the repo, you will see these files that get created. These files are the local database that we mentioned before. And these files are encrypted with the encryption key, and all your conversation messages are going to be stored in this device and in this database. And if this database is lost, your conversations are going to be lost. There are ways to recover them, but in theory, they are lost because they are only stored in that database and they are not stored anywhere else. So this is the GM example. We will go, you will see like after the client creation is making a sync. So it's fetching the network to see if there are any new conversations that we should be aware of. Once it's like refreshed with the network, it's going to create a stream. And the stream is basically going to be waiting for messages to be received. And these messages, in this case, because it can be a group or a DM, yeah, we are going to, in this case, we are not checking if it's a group or a DM. It just sends a GM on any conversation. And we can also get the address from the one who is sending the message. So in this case, response to this is the address that I created on XMTP chat with the Ephemeral wallet. Yeah, so that's the XMTP agent example. So then you go, if you want to start to build like more like cooler agents, we have some cursor rules. And cursor rules cover a lot of concepts, like how to create groups, how to handle all these concepts from XMTP, how to handle encryption keys, guidelines, how to use, because we are using TypeScript, how to use types, so the code is very reliable and easy to read, how to use streams. So the cursor rules is like a big README file, like a big set of docs tailored to AI. You know, you have a lot of code snippets, examples, and ideally, these cursor rules are going to be available to code about anything on XMTP. So we are going to demo how that works in a second. Maybe I can go over one other example. So we have examples for transactions. We have examples for how to restart stream, like best practices. We have examples for a dual client, which is when you want to receive a stream. What you create two clients with the same wallet key, and one client is expecting the messages, it's only used for streaming, and the other client is used for sending a message. So sometimes if your agent performs like complex tasks, you may want to save that task in a queue that you can process, and once it's completed, then send it to the user. So that processing, and maybe it's more complex, and you will need like a better way to separate that you're still inside the stream versus using like an independent worker for sending that message. We have examples for an NFT gated group. So you can send slash commands. And in this example, it's going to check if the address that is sending the message has certain NFT collection. In this case, we're using XMTP people from one of our engineers, Naomi, and she has a very cool collection on OpenSea. And so if you are an NFT owner, you will get added to this group. So again, all this, because it's interoperable, all the concepts are available for developers, so you can play around with groups, you can play around with adding members, removing members, and so on. So yeah, let's try to build an agent. So we have two cursor rules. In this case, we have XMTP cursor rules, and we also have monorepo guidelines. So this tells the agent how the monorepo is structured, how the folders work, what libraries do you need, what are the best practices for creating an agent in this monorepo. Again, what I do here is to create the agent rule. It's on MDC, is the format that Cursor uses. And I also have a backup in Markdown. So basically it's a copy paste because it's easier to search when you want to search through the whole repo. Search doesn't work very well still on Cursor rules. And yeah, it's better formatted, so it's easier to read, but it's the same. So these are tagged to always by default, so you don't need to mention them or tag them. These are always going to work, both rules. I think I have a README rule on how to write good READMEs, and that's a manual rule. So I need to, in this case, I will need to add a rule in Cursor like this in order to tag this rule. But if not, XMTP and the monorepo guidelines should be enough. So let's create an agent that receives the number, multiplies by 2, and sends a response. And let's see what happens. I'm using always Cloud 3.7 Sonnet. I think it's the best. So he knows about the rules. He's reading the repo. And when I say he, of course, I'm talking about my lovely agent. Learning some context. It's probably a bug on the cursor side here. Okay, while it's thinking, let's check another example. For example, transactions is something that a lot of developers are asking for. So if I go to CD examples, CD XMTP transactions, again, this works like its own little small repo. So I can do yarn dev on the transactions example, and it's going to create the client. Maybe in this case, I have a single environment file that is inside the transaction folder. So the wallet is going to be different. It's going to default to this set of keys. And I'm still on production, so I can create the message to this transaction bot. And this transaction bot is going to show me two commands. Again, this is very minimal just to show how it works. But I could do tx1, so I could check my balance. This is going to check for USDC on base Epolia. Base Epolia is indicated here. But I can do tx.1, 10 cents, and it's going to trigger a content type. We call them content types. So by default, everything is a text content type, but then you can send replies, reactions, attachments, and one of those content types is a transaction. So this transaction content type is going to trigger a transaction. I confirm it and then sends me the transaction on the Scan Explorer on base Epolia. And this is, yeah, all the code, of course, is here. For this example, we are using a USDC helper, so it has some configurations around how to work with base, what's the token address of USDC, what are the identifiers of either base mainnet or base Epolia, how to use smart contracts to check for the balance. It's a 1,000 lines of code helper that, coupled with the content type, lets you have a fully functional engine with transactions. And yeah, so the multiplier is ready. Let's just accept all because we trust. And let's go back. So let's go back to example folder now. I want to get inside multiplier number, and I'm going to run yarn dev as is. Okay, first we do yarn, so the packages are updated. Let's try again, yarn dev. Okay, I'm missing wallet key, encryption key, and because I'm inside this folder, it's going to wait for me to set the keys. So again, I can run yarn gen keys. So it created me the M file, super simple. You don't need to go to MetaMask. You just have a wallet. It's also logging your public key. And now we do, again, yarn dev. Okay, so it looks like it's live. Now it's on dev network. And this is the address of the agent. So let's switch to dev network. Again, I'm going to create an ephemeral. And I'm going to send a message to this agent. So yeah, we vibe coded this agent in order to get a number to be multiplied. So as we can see, it created the index file with XMTP best practices, very short index file. It created the package JSON, also based on the monorepo guidelines. So as you can see, it's aware of the location of the folder. It's aware of how to name the example. It's aware of which libraries to use. In this case, it's using the libraries from the monorepo root configuration, and also knows how to run the yarn keys command and so on. And it also polished a nice README that explains you what the agent does and how to run it. So yeah, like the README is part of the guidelines. It also understands that because I have a README in each example, probably a README makes sense. And gives you an example and the index. Okay, so this is my GM boss. If I say hi, okay, it's asking me for a number. So let's send 10. Okay, so 10 plus 2 is 10. 5 plus 2 is 10. Maybe we can, try to break the bot. It didn't took the decimal. Yeah, it did. It also parses decimals. So yeah, and we can see the logs on the left. And that's how easy it is to create an agent with XMTP. And yeah, you can just keep vibe coding here. Is going to be aware of how to work with groups. It's going to be aware of more complex concepts. And yeah, this is everything that it did actually. Like it's taking the message content is parsing it as a float. If it's a number, then show the number. If it's not a number, please send the number. And yeah, this code looks solid. And then you can, of course, export this, work on your own repo. We have standalone cursor rules as well. So if I go to GMBot, the GMBot is standalone, so it's not using a mono repo setup. So this is more similar to what you will do if you deploy a bot. And it has its own cursor rules on how to build a bot that is standalone. So now it's a little bit different. You need to specify the libraries. You don't use the root libraries from the monorepo. You also need to specify some TypeScript config. And yeah, again, more examples on how to, but again, this is not something that you should worry about. This is all handled by the AI. And once you have the repo, then you can go, for example, to platforms like Railway, which is very simple to set up an agent. So I can just do gmbot is importing my the repo from GitHub, and this will just, you can just deploy it and it will just go live and be listening for any incoming messages on the network. So yeah, that was Vibe Coding 101. Again, everything is on the agent examples repo. And yeah, that was me. Any questions? Also, let me know.
Awesome. Thanks, Fabri. Any questions for Fabri and vibe coding agents? No. Let's see. Cool. Awesome. All right, Duke, you're up, sir. Let's talk about Ohara and no-code platforms, building mini apps.
Yeah, sure, definitely. All right. So, um, where do I begin? So Ohara, I guess, is employing vibe coding as well. And I would say the thing behind Ohara is looking to set up vibe coding in a way where it caters to people who are not so like technically inclined, right? So the idea is that, okay, a lot of us who are maybe devs and who are into this game can understand like the different codes that may pop up when you're vibe coding and troubleshooting that. But what we are trying to do here is to make it as simple for people who just maybe want to develop a small mini app that has a particular functionality to serve maybe something that they want to do, maybe like XMTP, create like a chat inbox or something like that. So the idea is, if you are somebody who's like really intimidated by like coding and don't feel like it's your forte, being able to come and through like a simple prompt creates something that may be useful for maybe a project or an idea that you have, and to be able to test out your creativity. Because I feel like personally, what I think vibe coding is doing for most people is people who are intimidated by coding, but probably have ideas. So it's opening a new world for people to tap into their creativity in a way where they don't have to feel like they have to be like too tech savvy or to be like devs in order to like see their ideas come out on screen. So that is kind of what Ohara is looking to do, and we're still growing and perfecting that. And we also have the angle of the apps that are generated within the Ohara space having like being able to be tokenized. So people say, like, you can look here as like the top apps on Ohara. Say people really like the app that you created, maybe it's like a game or something, and they take to it. that token can have value rising as well. So it's like you've built something that actually has value that is serving other people. And there's another functionality which we're still working on, which is the remix, where perhaps you've built a foundational app that somebody really likes. So it's like, okay, I'll take this app and build multiple layers on top of it using different SDKs and APIs and whatnots. So that's in a nutshell what we're doing here. And when you come to the main site, Ohara.ai, you can see some of the top apps and the different people who have published it, right? And usually the workflow is kind of simple. You go to create, and so you have simple create button where you can prompt our agent on what to build for you. And what I think we have here is having the different SDKs and API connections. So that's one of the things we're doing to make it easier for you, where, for example, if you wanted to create your own app as a dev and you wanted to use, say, Flux or different APIs or SDKs, you would have to pay a particular amount, but we're allowing you to create these mini apps on Ohara for basically zero cost, right? So my job in Ohara is part of the engineering team. I'm a what you call a connector. So basically what I do is I'm sitting in between the bot and the docs, the API docs and the SDKs, and I'm creating like implementation guides that the AI builder can use when it's building whatever app you ask it to build, so that it can integrate with the different APIs and SDKs without having to go skim through any docs and trying to find out if it's up to date and so on and so forth. So I'm sitting in between that as a connector. So as you can see, there's different APIs and SDKs that we work on to integrate into the system. And one of the ones that we work with is, of course, with you all with XMTP. And so when you come here, you connect whichever one that you API or SDK that you want. And you could connect multiple depending on the idea that you have and what you want to build. When you go to settings, you can choose the different language model. Right now, we're moving with Claude 3.7 Sonnet as kind of like the standard because we realize that it's doing it better than most of them. So that's what's set to default. And you can see here, the code is also available if you want to see it, but because the main thing was to make it easy for non-technical people, so you don't have to worry about the code. At the moment, you can't go in and edit the code whilst the AI is building it or after it's done building it, but you can see the code. So, but it's something that we've been talking about to see if perhaps we can give the option of people who actually want to go there and troubleshoot and play with the code themselves because they understand it. So that's something. But right now, you don't see any code. So it will start creating the code once we go to create and we give it a prompt. So with the XMTP connection connected for now, let's say I can give it a simple prompt like build me a decentralized chat inbox, right? And it begins the process and it shows it in preview. So the assistant, as it's building, is going to be giving you feedback on what is actually happening. And, we have these funny kind of jokes, things that's like to keep you, I don't know, keep you in a good mood whilst you're waiting. Because sometimes, depending on how big the API or SDK connection is, the bot may take some time. Sometimes you may go through certain iterations, right? So as it's building, it's giving you an update of the different components it's building. Usually goes through like a methodological process of maybe like the page, the layouts, the provider, and the different components that will be used. So one thing I've realized with working on these is that so there's two approaches that I personally take in creating the guides for the bots, right? Usually when you're working with APIs and it's just like basic endpoints, it can help to give the AI builder some kind of free range in terms of how it decides to artistically build it in terms of the UI or the placement of things because it's building it and it'll use its own, should I say, creative input or knowledge of how to put it together to make it best. But usually it's like a very simple UI. It's not too technical or, too what's the word I'm looking for? Too exactly polished, right? And we're still working on adding other components, UI components to the basic system prompt so that it can have more like a polished look. But the two approaches I was saying is you can either give it the know-how in terms of like the different endpoints and what it does in the implementation guide, or in some cases, depending on how you want the app to look, you can restrict its free range a little bit and give it perhaps like examples of how you'd want the UI to be displayed. So for example, when I was building the guide for XMTP, for example, I had to go through multiple iterations and realize that every single time the bot would build something that wasn't too much to my liking. And I wanted to model it a little bit off the XMTP chat so that there's some kind of correlation between what you guys have actually built so that it's a little more seamless. So just to pause for a second, as it's building, sometimes you may see these what may look like build errors, but it's still building. It's just showing me where it is in the process. So as you can see, the bar is moving. It's just telling me that, okay, it got here. It's already built the components, but it's now having to install the SDKs that are necessary, the packages that are necessary to get maybe, say, the group and the DM functionality from the browser SDK. So just go back to what I was saying. With this one in particular, I had to kind of take away a bit of its free range so it would have a little more form and structure in terms of how I would build a chatbot so things will have a little more unison. So it's always like a balance between the two, right? And so here I can select a dev, production, or local network and ask to connect the wallet and see connect to MetaMask. I'm done. So and as it's building it, we have it's putting all live on the preview. That's what's like really cool about it. So your app is just there, right there for you to experience it, right? And now the interface is here, and we can create a new chat and maybe put. I have a oops. Let me see which address I could use for this. And put in the recipient address and start a conversation. So it begins creating the conversation, and we can move this bar over here a little bit. Oops. Yeah. So what I did was I went to XMTP chat to see. So right here, the conversation. So testing it in the XMTP chat, just right there from what Ohara created, the message I sent comes right through. And if I were to say, I hear you loud and clear and send back as a testing to make sure at least the app also gets it. Give me a second. Usually you have to sync the message and you see the message flows right through. So just right there, we have a chat inbox, right? And it's functional. So the thing, like I was saying, is in building this, just to make sure I was able to get it off the ground, to make sure at least the chat aspect of XMTP works foundationally. That's what we had to do. And maybe I can give you like a snippet into what some of the guides look like. So we try to use a kind of standardized guide, right? That we give to the bot. So the bot already has a system prompt that is working on in terms of how to generally build apps. And then for the different SDKs and APIs, we have a standardized guide of sorts, right? But you have to move on it play by play, depending on which SDK or API you're working with, because your iterations will allow you to know, okay, is the information I'm giving it allowing it to give me back what I would like to see? What are the errors? So it involves a lot of iteration and errors to, actually fix it. So like we have like an introduction, an overview, critical implementation notes, and installations, right? Usually the bot is smart enough that you don't even have to tell it exactly what it needs to install for that. But I realized when building this that sometimes because of its idea of maybe building, say, decentralized apps, instead of using Veeam, it may want to use Ethers, right? Instead of using the latest XMTP version, it may want to use maybe the legacy version. So sometimes just adding that initial instruction for it to know what is going on helps. And that is something that I realized from iterating with it. And we'll give it like a provider configuration and maybe different components, examples of the different components, and maybe a route layout, how to handle errors and things like that. And with this, I had to kind of like build a model component and tell it, hey, this is how I actually want you to build it. I don't want you to give me an interface where I can't even select my different conversations. I can't even sync messages. So that is kind of the process of creating the guide that allows the AI builder to be able to, use the SDK in a particular way that we wanted to do. So that said, that was my way of like foundationally making sure like the basic elements of creating a chat inbox is possible. But then of course there's different applications to what XMTP can do, like some of what we just saw. So the whole process would be to go back in and see how I can guide it to maybe create an agent, right? And see what hiccups it has and continue to iterate it like through like maybe our dev system to see, okay, it's suffering on this point, so it's having glitches here. How do I maybe tell it to be like how do I maybe specify how I want it to do things versus maybe just leaving it to figure it out? And because the entire thing that we want to do is we don't want the user to have to keep prompting it to try and fix errors, because we want it to be one shot, because some of the users may not realize that, okay, I got this error, now I have to troubleshoot it and get it to fix it. The thing about it is, if you do try to troubleshoot it, you can still continue prompting. You can still continue prompting the bot, right? And if there are any errors or any edits you want to make, you can still continue and it will keep working on it. So, but our thing is to make it more convenient for the users to be like, oh, I wanted this app and I wanted it integrated to this API or SDK. And I was able to do that in one shot. And now I have that app on my system. And like I said, if you go back to configure, you can see the different code it generated for you, like the page, the layout, the provider, the wallet connect that is actually using, how it set up the chat inbox components and different things. What I'm hoping we can possibly do is have a way for maybe a user who's like mid tech savvy, or also like an early user, to be able to at least maybe download this code or get the repo so that they can test it locally on their machine. Because I believe there's utility in having vibe coding be able to provide you with the apps that you want to do by just prompting it, right? But as a dev myself who like learned from just playing with creating things on myself, I think it also helps to be able to have access to the code and learning, okay, what does this code mean and how do I use it to maybe tweak things on my own? So that is kind of in a nutshell what we're doing here at Ohara and how XMTP integration, at least for the start, has worked. Yeah, I see someone has a
Yeah. Hey, Duke, How's it
Yeah,
going?
good.
This Tony from Oregon. I'm also doing some vibe coding, and I'm trying to work XMTP into social wallet that I'm building on the Federa. And I'm running into issues. I'm having fun. I definitely intend to get this done because there's other Federa projects that want to integrate XMTP as well, some prominent Federa projects. And
Great.
I'm running into WebSocket failures, type error, CORS limitations, and also non-decentralized fallbacks that my Replit agent wants to always build. Have you been able to successfully, connect and send decentralized messages to the production network using the
Wait,
vibe coding app?
sorry, you were breaking. You asking, have I been able to do what?
Yeah, successfully get the vibe coding app to connect and send messages between accounts over the production network.
Yeah, I mean the test I just did was over the production network, and it's interesting you asked that question because when I first deployed it to our production network, dev was working smoothly, but there was an issue with production that I had experienced, so I had to go back with Rye to figure that out. And what I run into that I realized could have been causing that issue was on the production network. There's usually the history sync URL has to also switch to production network, depending on which model of the SDK you're using. I think with just one, it does that for you without you having to necessarily specify what the history sync URL should be. But the other thing was that I noticed on the production network, usually whoever is receiving the message on the production network needs to give consent. So that's something that maybe you have to check because I was having a lot of errors on that. And I realized that consent has to be given from both parties for, in order for the message to go. So that could be like a glitch that possibly could be happening because that's something that I faced.
Are you part of the staff over here?
No, I'm
Yeah,
with Ohara.
with Ohara. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. Yeah. Like this morning, am resolved to kind of go over to the other apps, the Converse app, and now what's its successor, Convo, and just try to see and replicate exactly what they're doing from their repo.
Yeah.
Is that the route that you've gone, or?
So when I began and I realized the builder was struggling a little bit to have a overall conceptual idea of how to layer up the apps and make sure information is passed and sent so that it's consistent for different users who wanted to build XMTP integration. I had to go into the XMTP repo, right, to see how the XMTP chat was actually modeled, right? So I could see how the different layers were working together. And that was very helpful working with cursor back and forth and different, vibe coders to be able to not only troubleshoot, but to be able to find like a nice setup to allow the information to be able to flow back and forth. So going to the repo is very helpful. And I would advise that you look at the most updated one because there are certain things that maybe may change in case you're using, say, the browser SDK 1.14 versus the 2, or maybe the one before the 0, the 1.00 versus the 2. Because in the beginning, maybe you're trying to send messages across using the address as the authenticator, but then XMTP moved into inbox ID, sending information like that. So that's some of the things that maybe you may have to check within your code because something small as that could be causing a glitch. You trying to use the address as the authenticator when maybe you need an identifier. So things like that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm learning code as I go along because I'm not a coder. I'm not
Yeah.
a coder.
Hey, Tony,
Hey, Fabrizio, how are you?
how are you? All
I'm
good.
good. I'm good. Let me drop this chat is not enabled. I will drop a link to a deployment that I'm doing. Let's see.
Yeah, I hear you. You're trying to connect the Hedera wallet, right?
Yep. I'm using a
The fact
dual
is,
key architecture though. I'm actually using the right key structure. I'm abandoning the Hedera account as the root account and going with the format that you guys are already dealing with. I'll just be using Hedera really for payments and stuff and NFT. So I pivoted from trying to get it to work. You know, initially Hedera account as a core account, and then creating an Ethereum account from that, a derivative, and using that to connect with the XMTP network, which was sort of working, but the complexity kept getting hairier and hairier. So I backed out of that. I'm just trying to go super simple using a compatible account, an Ethereum address from the go on it. And I'm running into issues with the Replit environment, I think, WebSocket failures, error code 16 and 404s, type errors indicating the SDK or Replit environment incompatibility and some cores limitations as well. I'm wondering if I could just get somebody to hold my hand for a little bit and look at what I'm doing and kind of guide me in the right direction. Because I've got to get this working. I think, you know, this could be a real breakthrough for our Hedera ecosystem if we start using it.
yeah, we can point you to one of our Telegram groups so you can share a little more context. So it works in local, it fails in Replit. My intuition says it's something related to the package manager, but yeah, we can take a look for sure.
Where could you drop a link to me, or where should I hook up with you guys?
Hey, Tony, I
Yeah.
just dropped a link to the Telegram group. Yeah, feel free to join that. And yeah, we can help you out.
Okay, Telegram group.
You see it?
What's the I'm not sure that I'm in the group.
I just dropped a link here. I can follow up with you.
Yeah, that'd be good. My
Cool.
handle is Tony Canero, TonyCanero on Telegram. Maybe you can DM it to me.
Cool. Yeah,
And then
sounds
I'll
good.
join the group. Yeah, I'm really starting to jam over these last 4 or 5 weeks on this wallet, and now I've got to cross this XMTP bridge because I've got a meeting with the granting organization from Hedera on Friday, and you know could potentially get resources to make this thing, and I want to get as much done before.
Great. Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Well, Duke, thanks so much. That was a really awesome overview of Ohara and showcasing some of the no-code tools. And yeah, super excited. I know we're over time here, but any last questions for Duke? And I think if Naomi's still on the call, we can jump into really quick Eng updates.
Yeah, it should take maybe 2 minutes.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tony.
I don't have the slides though.
Yeah, let me share.
Awesome. Yeah. Mostly a lot of stability and performance coming on the engineering side. We're working on a release candidate this week. So hopefully have all of this coming to you all soon. So there's been a lot of device sync improvements, streaming improvements. Last week we set a hammer version of the API, which some of you may have experienced, setting a minimum version to kind of help protect clients going forward, and we're going to try to improve that in the future. So kind of have API calls that you can kind of catch and check when we're going to have a breaking change coming into the SDK so you can prepare more in advance. And we're also making a lot of progress on decentralization. So yeah, look for a new release from the protocol probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Should have some performance and stability improvements.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks, Naomi. Perfect. Thank you all for joining. Special shout out to Fabri and Duke for sharing. And feel free to join the Telegram group there, and we'll hopefully be moving over to Convos very soon. And yeah, looking forward to connecting more on vibe coding agents, and maybe I'll take some of these insights and next dev call, I'll show off my agent. Cool.
Nice.
Sweet.
Thank
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining.